And let's talk to Eylon Levy about this, who is a former Israel national spokesman. Eylon, thank you very much indeed for joining us. My last guest called it performative political theatre. We have the leader of the Conservative Party saying what this is a recognition and reward of terrorism. David Lammy, our former Foreign Secretary, says it's not going to do anything at all to help the plight of the people of Gaza. But what is your perspective on what's just happened here in the United Kingdom?
Vanessa, this is certainly performative because recognising a Palestinian state that doesn't exist doesn't bring it into existence, but that doesn't mean it's damage-free. This is a catastrophic decision, perhaps Britain's biggest blunder in the Middle East since Iraq. And that's because this rewards Hamas for the October 7th massacre. It vindicates its decision to launch this barbaric war nearly 2 years ago, and it will encourage more barbaric atrocities against Israeli civilians. In the short term, this sabotages any prospect of a peace deal, of a ceasefire, because Hamas is sitting back and calling this one of the fruits of October 7th. It feels that it made the right decision. And in the long run, this only pushes peace further away. Peace can only come when the Palestinian people firmly reject Hamas's path of violence. Now, I don't know what this is going to do for Keir Starmer's prospects in the polls. I know what it will do for Hamas. This move will make Hamas more popular among Palestinians because it will be seen as delivering political victories. It vindicates those barbaric atrocities of the October 7th massacre, and I fear for those hostages. I'm really scared for them trapped in the dungeons of Gaza now because their captors have been given a reward and every incentive to hold on to them for as long as they can.
You heard my last guest describe Israel as a pariah. You heard him talk about diminishing the power, diminishing, I think, the very existence of the state of Israel. What is your take on that? What's your response to Israel being branded a pariah? And, of course, you know, accusations levied around the world of genocide taking place in Gaza, even though the international, the ICG has not confirmed that verdict. Yet it's being said as if it's fact by all manner of different experts and pundits. So what's your response to that?
I think many world leaders have indeed lost the plot. After those horrific atrocities by Hamas, they understood this war must end with Hamas removed from power. But under domestic pressure from the street and from backbenchers, they're now taking a move that will empower Hamas and encourage it to do more of those atrocities. It's easy from afar to preach that Hamas must release the hostages, it must relinquish power, but it's not doing that. And Israel is the only side that's trying to force Hamas to do that. Now, let's be clear what the October 7th massacre was. It was an act of genocide by the jihadi regime that controls the Gaza Strip, that is sworn to the destruction of Israel and murder of every last citizen. It was a campaign to massacre as many people as brutally as they could and to take survivors as hostages out of a commitment to the total destruction of the state of Israel. And what Israel has been doing since is fighting to do two things: to bring down the jihadi regime that is threatening to do that again and again until we are all dead, and to bring back the hostages who are being starved and tortured and at risk of execution. And this horrible war that Hamas began nearly 2 years ago can end tomorrow if it lays down its arms and frees the hostages, as the whole world is now saying. But I fear Hamas will not do that now, because Hamas feels it's being rewarded. Hamas feels it's being vindicated for the decision to launch this war and to keep dragging this war out. And any hope that Hamas might have realized it's game over, it has to free the hostages, it's lost the world, will now be reversed. Because Hamas will take this as a victory.
So when our Prime Minister announces the acknowledgement of a Palestinian state, does that mean, therefore, that he envisages a Palestinian state governed and presided over by the terrorist organisation Hamas? And if he does, how does he imagine that that is going to function in the world? How would that be practical? How could that be possible?
I don't think Keir Starmer is imagining a Palestinian state governed by Hamas, but that is what would happen if there were a Palestinian state and they had elections. Hamas is by far the most popular Palestinian political party. In fact, its support in the West Bank has more than doubled, nearly tripled, since the October 7th massacre. And the reason that Hamas is so wildly popular now is that the decision to launch the October 7th massacre seems vindicated. Palestinians feel that this has taken them forward on the world stage. And so this decision to recognize a Palestinian state is teaching them to look at October 7th, at those acts of rape and murder and savagery, as their independent state. This is going to empower Hamas. If we want peace, the only way peace is going to happen is if Hamas is completely and comprehensively defeated in Gaza, and if its ideology is discredited. If the Palestinian people reject Hamas's path and its ideology. But this decision is only going to make Hamas more popular. And so it's not only dangerous, it's also tremendously counterproductive. And we will pay the price in blood here in the Middle East.
All right, let me read you this. It's in a long piece in the Mail by Stephen Pollard today. This is what he says. The reason why Keir Starmer has jettisoned his former formula is his government's craven fear of the sectarian Muslim vote that was such a striking feature of last year's general election. Some 37 constituencies have a Muslim population of more than 20%, and in 73 more seats, the Muslim population is between 10 and 20%. In those constituencies where the Muslim population is above 15%, Labour's vote fell by more than 14% between the 2019 and 24 elections. The party is terrified of losing further support from these voters and sees recognition of Palestine without the need for any peace agreement as a way of damning, D-A-double-M-I-N-G, the deluge. This is moral and political cowardice of the worst kind, argues Stephen Pollard. I wonder what your reaction is to that.
That sounds like a sensible appraisal of the situation. Keir Starmer is trying to get votes, and not from the general public, because a poll in The Telegraph this morning showed that 90% of the British people object to the decision to recognise a Palestinian state without any conditions on the Palestinians, any conditions on Hamas, before the hostages are free, before Hamas lays down its arms, before they commit to non-violence. I think most British people understand that this move is truly catastrophic. But I'm not sure Keir Starmer is appealing to the great British public when polls show that most of the country has been coloured in turquoise already, and Labour's best hopes of holding on in the next election are to hold on to those seats where they nearly lost to so many Muslim independents in the last election. So this is a terribly unpopular decision in Britain as well that is clearly designed to cater to certain minority interests, unfortunately, to the detriment of Britain's national security and foreign policy interests.
Well, thank you very much indeed for joining me, and I appreciate your perspective on this. That's Eylon Levy, their former Israel national spokesman.